Every time you buy goods or services on the internet, you enter your personal data. But what happens with it? What are the rights and obligations of companies using your private data? The current EU directive dealing with it dates back to 1995. It's more than time to implement new rules. After years of negotiation, the European Parliament and EU ministers can now start a final round of talks to find a common ground. We talked to German MEP Philipp Albrecht. He's leading the negotiations for the Parliament.
Philipp Albrecht, hello and welcome to this interview. It took about 2.5 years to reach at least this point here on data protection, meaning you will be able to continue in a trilogue with the Council of Ministers in Brussels. Now, the directive dates back to 1995. Why was it, in fact, so important to change it?
I think the most important point was that we realized data is cross-border by nature. There's not such a data which is only staying in Germany or only in the UK or in Spain. We have to have common rules for it and have a unified legal system to also create a single level playing field for all the companies and trust for the consumers into the European single market.
The devil is always in the detail, as we say, and there was this question about an explicit consent of data use. How far are we here? And if you could just enumerate me a bit where you say, I will not go further on this, I will not go further on that.
I think if you go to negotiations and trialogue, you should really limit the amount of red lines you have. The one red line is the 95 directive, but apart from that, of course, we need to discuss several issues, and one is the question of consent. If I give my consent, how explicitly do I have to do that as a consumer? And in how far do I set the purpose for the data processing, or the company can depart from the purpose and even use the data for something else? Or also the question, which duties data controllers will have? Do they have to employ a data protection officer when they have reached a certain size? And the last issue, very important, is how high can the sanctions be? The Council now asks for up to 2% of the yearly turnout. Parliament has voted 5%, and so we will discuss those issues.
Consumers seem to be happy with what happened, until now at least. What about the companies? What are the reaction you received? The reaction I received, in fact, were not very happy about that, and they will continue to fight. So what should be positive for bigger and smaller companies?
I think that with no law we were passing as European legislators, companies were completely happy. And I think that's natural. There are quite a lot of legitimate concerns. I agree with that. And we tried to meet all these concerns. We already did throughout the last 3 years. And I also think that we have to realize, and companies in Europe have to realize, that this law, if we pass it, will be one of the biggest subsidies to European IT business which we ever did, because we minimize bureaucracy to an absolute minimum. We create a level playing field, and we ask all the players coming from the outside to the market, so our competitors, to respect the same rules as we do. I think that's the best we can do to business in Europe.
This means if end of the year we get through it, I'm a consumer, I go on the internet, I buy something, what will happen to my data as I enter there?
I think that your data will be processed either for what you agree to, because if you agree, everything can be done, or for the purpose of what you were buying. For example, your invoice will be sent and everything else. And you will be informed better when you give your data at the beginning. For example, as the Parliament asked, by easy understandable symbols. You don't have to read all the 50 pages of lawyer language to agree. And so I think you will be better informed and make your decision more conscious.
Last question, how can you guarantee me that this data protection will work everywhere in the world?
I think we should be very self-confident as Europeans.
Especially in the US, of course.
Absolutely. It's a big question, of course, but we should be self-confident because we have the biggest single market in the world. Nobody can just ignore it. Everybody wants to serve products or services in the European market. So if we set the rules for this market, people will adapt. Providers will adapt. They will respect these rules. They will have to respect it everywhere, from everywhere in the world. And I think that we raise the standard, not only for the Europeans, but also for people in the United States, for people in Latin America, in Africa, everywhere, by having a gold standard, sending to the global market. I think we will be able to enforce this and also do agreements with third states more and more that they agree our standards are good.
And Philipp Albrecht, we wish you good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will need it.